Good morning, ladies. How are we? Happy Wednesday. I hope you're doing well this morning. We are halfway through the week for some of us. Our kiddos stop school the day after tomorrow because spring break starts next week. So I hope you're ready because let me tell you, I am not. But I'm definitely looking forward to spending time with them. So I hope you are ready for today. Today is week 3, day 3 of Arise, the study on the book of Nehemiah. And today's devotion topic that we'll be discussing is with the help of our God. And today's scriptures to meditate on is Nehemiah chapter 6, verse 15 through chapter 7, verse 73. The work of building was complete, and yet in so many ways there was so much more to build. The book will now shift from the task of building the wall of Jerusalem to that of building up the people of God. Verse 15 opens with the matter-of-fact truth that they finished the wall. Despite every obstacle and every opposition, the work was now completed. The wall was rebuilt in just 52 days. God's hand had been in the rebuilding of the wall from the beginning. And it is here in verse 16 that we see that not only did the people of God recognize that God's hand was in this, but even the enemies heard of the great work that had been done and knew that the God of Israel had helped his people. God used the rebuilding of the wall to show his power and faithfulness to his people, and also to the surrounding nations. God's presence and power were evident in this work. May the presence and power of God be evident in our lives as well. In Nehemiah chapter 4, verse 14, Nehemiah had reminded the people to remember the Lord. There is no need to fear the enemy when we remember who God is. He will be faithful to his people. And that is so very true. Excuse me. Just because success had come in the building of the wall did not mean that the opposition disappeared. Tobiah was still around and taking up a new strategy. He had connections to Israel through both his business dealing and through marriage in his family, and he used his influence to try to sway the people from Nehemiah's godly leadership. The attacks of Tobiah became personal toward Nehemiah, but Nehemiah would not be shaken. He knew that God had called him to a great task, and he would not abandon the work. The wall was now finished being rebuilt, but there was still work to be done in rebuilding the people of God. The rebuilding of the wall was not just about safety. It was ultimately about calling out God's people to be set apart and creating an environment for worship. The Westminster Shorter Catechism famously reminds us that the chief end of man is to glorify God and to enjoy him forever. Even here in Nehemiah, this is what Nehemiah was working towards. He was seeking to build an environment where God's people could do what God had called them to do, where they could serve him, sacrifice to him, and worship him. Jerusalem was not just any other city. Jerusalem was the city of God, and these were God's people. In chapter 7, we find a long list of names. It is a genealogy of the people of God. And though we may be tempted to skip past all of the names and numbers, they served a great purpose as Nehemiah reminded the people that they were God's people. They were people that had been called out of exile. They were the remnant that returned. They were God's servants, serving in individual ways for the glory of God. As humans, we are prone to forget. We forget the past. We forget how God has been faithful. We forget how he has answered prayer. And we forget who we are. Nehemiah did not want the people to forget, so he reminded them. We are not too much different than the people in Nehemiah's day. We are prone to forget. We forget who we once were and how we were enslaved to sin. We forget that we have been rescued and redeemed. We forget that God has always been faithful. We need to preach the message of his faithfulness to ourselves over and over again. We need to remind ourselves of what he has done. We need to remind ourselves that we are his. In Nehemiah's day, the people and the enemy knew that God had been with them on this journey, and we can be assured of the same truth in our own life. If we are children of God, He is working in us and through us, and victory is sure. So very true. So very true. Faithfulness. Okay, ladies, 3 quick questions for today. I'll post at the bottom of the video. However, first question, how has God's hand been seen in the book of Nehemiah? Refer to Nehemiah chapter 2, verse 8, chapter 2, verse 12, chapter 2, verse 20, chapter 4, verse 15, and chapter 4, verse 20. Second question, what are some of the obstacles that we encountered while building the wall? What obstacles have you encountered in your own life? And the last question, why do we need to be reminded of who we are in Christ? How does our identity impact the way we live our life? And that is all for today's devotion, ladies. I enjoyed hanging and chatting with you this morning. Now on to start my day with work. If you need prayer or you need a vent or you just need someone to listen or anything, sister, I'm here. Send me a message. You're not alone. God sees you. Stay faithful. Have a blessed day. Bye.